us wrestling fans, we go through times when we're pretty much just disgusted with what we see. Now, obviously, I really don't have that many moments where I was just like, I'm done watching. I'm done. Never again. But, there have been a handful of moments where I've looked at the screen and thought, what am I doing with this product? What am I doing with my life? And obviously, same rules apply with the previous video. Like, a lot of these moments are going to take place in the 2010s because that's just how my age works. And, I'm not going to be able to get, like, the really good stuff from, like, the mid-90s and, like, the early 2000s on here. But, 2010s. Anyway, coming in at number 5, in reference to the moments that kept me a wrestling fan, we're going to kind of make a little reference here. Number 5 is Christian versus Randy Orton from SmackDown. Now, all of you know where this is going. I was a huge Christian fan. I loved the guy, and I was so happy to get to see him win the world title. And he lost it 2 days later, technically 5 days if you want to be technical here. He lost it 5 days later to Randy Orton, which was just awful. And in 2011, like around this time, like 2010, 2011, I was not very high on Randy Orton. Randy Orton was, I love him. He's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I love the guy. But I was just not on good terms with Randy Orton. I was really having my issues with him. To me, he was the most repetitive, boring wrestler on the roster. And to see him take the title from Christian was just a kick in the nuts, basically. Like, that's basically what this was. It was awful. And I remember seeing, I didn't actually even watch SmackDown. I saw, like, videos on YouTube, like SmackDown spoilers. And I think it was Trademark 629. I think that's who I watched, his rant about Christian losing the title. Because when I saw the title, it was like SmackDown spoiler, like major spoiler, and I knew it had something to do with Christian. And despite my own fears, I watched the video, and long and behold, it was about Christian, and Trademark 69 ripped WWE a new one, talking about how that was a stupid decision on their part, and I gotta agree with him. This was stupid. I hated this. I hated watching. I watched the match on Friday when it aired, knowing the result, but I still got equally as mad. It was so stupid. Like, even if the plan was for him to drop the belt next month at Over the Limit, I honestly would have taken that, to be totally honest. Like, give him at least a proper build to a pay-per-view match. I mean, I know Christian was never the WWE's hot priority, and I know Edge always had it better than Christian and stuff like that. Granted, Christian did get 2 world championships, and he did get an ECW title run, and he did have a good career over at TNA. That being said, just give the guy a break. He's worked for you for so long, the least you could do is give him a 1-month title reign. Granted, they did do that from July to August, but they could have done it here too. Anyway, coming in at number 4, we have the 2015 Royal Rumble. Now, this could have been potentially number 1. However, this one worked itself out a little bit. The 2015 Royal Rumble was pretty atrocious. One of the worst Royal Rumbles I've ever seen. That's not just because the winner and the losers of the match. It just flat out was. It wasn't booked properly at all. Everyone else looked like a complete loser except for Roman Reigns. WWE protected him to hell and back. And then, you have guys like Daniel Bryan, Dolph Ziggler, Dean Ambrose, guys the fans like. They just get tossed out like complete losers and complete geeks. Like, this match was built around Roman Reigns, and it was disgusting because the fans just weren't ready to see Roman Reigns win the title. Obviously, Daniel Bryan winning was the obvious choice on that night, but because of the way the injuries worked out, you gotta question if that was the right decision. I still think it would be, but just would kind of have a repeat of WrestleMania 30, which again would kind of suck. But the thing with this was just, it was WWE just kind of turning their back to the fans. The fans didn't want Roman Reigns. And how, aside from Daniel Bryan, they were still into Dolph Ziggler. They were still into Dean Ambrose. So there were other options, too. It was WWE turning their back to the audience. And, the whole Royal Rumble was so Vince McMahon. I'm going to quote, he goes Brian Alvarez. He just said, how this is so Vince McMahon, how, the final 4 was Roman Reigns, the handsome, long-haired, muscular prototype Hulk Hogan, main eventer, and then it was 2 ugly giants and an evil Russian. I think that's what Brian Alvarez said, and that's pretty much it. That was basically that was pretty much the final 4 of the Royal Rumble, Roman Reigns won to the crowd's boos, and The Rock came out and raised his hand, and they turned on The Rock again. It's just pretty just bland Royal Rumble, and the Royal Rumble is a great pay-per-view, and everyone looks forward to the Royal Rumble match because it's an exciting match. And for WWE to put zero effort into it just to have us have a winner that no one really wanted, it just was stupid. And I hated every moment of watching. Once Daniel Bryan got eliminated, I was done with that match, and I was so tired of watching it all, and I was so angry, and I just hated every single moment of that match. Absolutely atrocious. Coming at number 3, I made reference to this again on my last video, but the burial of Zack Ryder. Here's the thing about Zack Ryder and why his burial was so disturbing, if that's a good word for it. Zack Ryder got himself over. He didn't need the WWE to shove a rocket up his ass. He didn't need all this publicity. He didn't need all these merch sales. He didn't need WWE. He got himself over on his own YouTube channel. Granted, WWE started endorsing his YouTube show, but it was basically him. What is so disgusting about that is WWE basically said, it was a message to the locker room basically, you don't get over unless we say so. Which to me is just so WWE has some messed up policies and they do some weird shit to protect people that they want over and stuff like that. Like a prime example is them taking away Bad News Barrett's character for King Barrett. No one wants to see King Barrett. Everyone wants Bad News Barrett, but because Bad News Barrett's getting over, they got to take it away from it to protect the other baby faces that will be fine. I'll never understand WWE's issue of we can only have so many guys over. Wouldn't you want every single wrestler in your company to be over with the crowd? Zack Ryder was over, but now no one, sure, he gets a nostalgia pop. I mean, if you want to call it a nostalgia pop, I really don't know what to call it. No one wants to see Zack Ryder win the U.S. Championship now. You know why? Because no one cares about him, because WWE forced us not to care about him. Zack Ryder did it on his own. He wasn't in the WWE's his plan books. WWE had no intentions of doing anything with Zack Ryder. So Zack Ryder made it out for himself, which just shows the politics of pro wrestling and just the machine aspect of it. They didn't want Zack Ryder, so they're not going to use him despite how much the people want him. And that's a recurring theme I've noticed throughout these years. It's just the fans want certain guys, and WWE just doesn't want to comply. Why? Because it doesn't follow their plans? Who cares about your plans? It's the people. They're the ones that, supply you with money and everything. They're the ones you're entertaining. I never kind of wrap my head around that. WWE, the WWE staff does not make this show to entertain them. They make it to entertain people. And people wanted Zack Ryder. People like Zack Ryder. People were into his YouTube channel. Everyone loved him. And the only positive that came out of this burial was when Kane pushed him off the stage in the wheelchair. I love Zack Ryder, and I hate the fact that he got buried, and it disgusts me that he got buried. But that spot is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life, and whenever I'm having a bad day, I just open up YouTube, type that in, and watch it, because it is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. And even, I'm looking at the picture right now that I have for my video, and the picture's hilarious too. It's just, it was the dumbest spot I've ever seen, but whatever. Zack Ryder's burial was just stupid. Coming in at number 2, Jeff Hardy versus Sting from Victory Road 2011. This was just embarrassing more than anything else. I mean, with the previous 3, someone could say that it was the right decision, but here, you can't defend this. Jeff Hardy embarrassed himself and ultimately embarrassed wrestling fans alike because, this is a world title. Sure, TNA is not the WWE, the global phenomenon that WWE is, but TNA is a wrestling business, all right? And you're going to show up to your world title match against a legend like Sting, someone who's done something in wrestling and, someone who respects wrestling and, one of the all-time greats in the company and just in the business in general. And you're going to show up to that match drugged out of your mind. And maybe this has to do with my strong views on drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. But it's just it was embarrassing, and I didn't watch Victory Road 2011 live, but I remember hearing about it the next day and stuff like that. And I watched the YouTube video of Jeff Hardy just completely just stoned out of his mind, not knowing what's going on, and then having to, a title match ends in 90 seconds. And, you not only did Jeff Hardy, like, hurt his reputation, but the fans get ripped off too, and it was just, and, like, it's classic TNA, you know what I mean? And I hate to throw TNA under the bus like that, considering all the stuff they're going through now, but, like, really, like, you want to show, you want to hope that there's other alternatives to WWE, because when WWE pisses you off, you can go watch something else. But, like, if this is your alternative, a 90-second main event featuring a Sting, who's, I love Sting, all-time great, but really shouldn't be holding a world title at this point, and Jeff Hardy completely pulled out of his mind. I love Jeff Hardy, and all the kids love Jeff Hardy in WWE. Everyone respects Jeff Hardy because he's such a great athlete, and he's such a risk taker, and he put his body on the line for everyone. He entertained us for years. But he's just going to show up completely pilled out of his mind. And while I'm at it, the Hardy Boys in general, they need to stay as far away from drugs as possible, because when they're stoned, they just do stupid shit. And, like, watching their YouTube videos when they're high, absolutely stupid. They just make a mess of themselves. They come across as very bitter. They come across as very just, angry about nothing, and completely just almost trashy, in my opinion. And I hate to use that word, but it's just like, that's really what it seems. Anyway, so Jeff Hardy, showing up to his match stoned was an embarrassment to not only him, but to other wrestling fans. And I know Jeff Hardy's pretty much cleaned himself up now, and I'm happy about that. I'm happy to hear that. It was just embarrassing. And, I really hated liking wrestling at that point, just because of, like, how unprofessional someone can be to show up to a main event match completely stoned out of their mind. So, whatever. Coming at number 1, all these 4 moments, they made me mad. And I'm a pretty level-headed person. I don't get mad that often, and I usually stay very calm. But there's one moment that legitimately, I sat in my living room, I watched the pay-per-view, and when it went off the air, I was legitimately angry. And that was Royal Rumble 2014, Batista winning the 2014 Royal Rumble and going on to WrestleMania 30 to face Randy Orton for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Now, granted, everything worked out in the end, but let me tell you something. None of us knew that was going to happen the night of the Royal Rumble. So Batista versus Randy Orton seemed like the main event for WrestleMania 30, and that seemed like the worst possible main event for WrestleMania 30 ever. There were multiple things wrong with this. Number 1, the obvious one. Daniel Bryan was completely over. The most over anyone has ever been in that company since, like, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Incredibly over, getting the loudest ovations ever. It was only, 2 weeks prior to this? I want to say it was a week prior when he turned on... No, it had to have been 2 weeks prior, because they made the match at Royal Rumble. So 2 weeks prior, he turns on Bray Wyatt. Maybe it was a little more than that, but you guys know what I mean. Before this pay-per-view, he turned on Bray Wyatt in that awesome cage match, and where the entire crowd was chanting yes, and everyone was behind him. He loses to Bray Wyatt in the opener of the Royal Rumble, which seemed kind of head-scratchery, but you know what, that was fine, because we all knew, he lost the opener, he's going to come in at number 30 and win the Royal Rumble match. And when Rey Mysterio came out, everyone booed the hell out of this match, and I could not blame them. Everyone turned against this match. Daniel Bryan was the clear winner of the 2014 Royal Rumble. You can argue that maybe he shouldn't have won the 2015 Royal Rumble, and you know what? I can respect that argument. You can make that argument all you want, but 2014, you gotta admit, it was his time. WWE just completely took their middle finger out and showed it to every single wrestling fan that night. Everyone wanted to see Daniel Bryan win. And you could argue, well, WWE never advertised him for the match. That is very true. And I agree with that. They never advertised that he will be part of the Royal Rumble match. However, how many times have we seen someone make the, surprise entrant, or like the number 30 entrant, you go backstage and he's knocked out, and who knocked him out? It was Daniel Bryan, now he's coming in, and he's going to win the Royal Rumble and stuff like that. Like, that could have easily happened. But it didn't, because WWE didn't want it to happen. They wanted to wrestle Sheamus, because they have complete lack of regard for the audience. That is a recurring theme of this countdown. Complete disregard for the audience. I guess you could argue it with Christian and Randy Orton. Maybe that was just me. Maybe they were showing disregard to me. Roman Reigns winning the 2015 Royal Rumble was complete disregard of the audience. Everyone loved Zack Ryder, but they buried him. Jeff Hardy showed complete disregard for the audience when he showed up stoned. And WWE letting Batista win. the Royal Rumble 2014 for absolutely no reason. He just came back. Everyone was excited for Batista, but no one was that excited. And besides, they made him a face. Why? Batista even himself says that was not a good idea because no one's going to buy the fact that Batista, after being gone for 4 years, will just come back and beat Randy Orton and everyone will love him. That is a classic Vince McMahon thought. Just because Batista is muscular and really big doesn't mean we're going to like him. Everyone loved Daniel Bryan. When Mick Foley smashes his TV in his backyard, you know you did something wrong. Absolutely ridiculous. Again, this was probably the only time I ever got mad. And when it came down to the final two, between Roman Reigns and Batista, I even said to myself, I'm okay with a Roman Reigns win. Not because I wanted Roman Reigns to win, not because I thought Roman Reigns was ready to main event WrestleMania. I just desperately did not want Batista to main event WrestleMania 30. That is how bad it got. I was willing to let Roman Reigns, who was still in the Shield, was not ready to start a singles career, and was not ready to main event WrestleMania 30. I was okay with him winning because I just did not want Batista to win at all. Again, everything worked out. WrestleMania 30 was amazing. But back then, placing myself on that night of the 2014 Royal Rumble, I was ready to stop watching wrestling just because I was so angry. The only thing that kept me going, the thing that made me tune into Raw the next day, was to see just how WWE would cover this. And that was kind of my interest for WrestleMania, for WrestleMania 30 season. I'm like, how in the hell is WWE going to recover from this? I wanted to see if they'd pull it out. And they proved me wrong. They did it. Congratulations, WWE, you did it. Congratulations. And I'm happy you did, because I went to WrestleMania 30 and I was dreading that. I was excited to go to WrestleMania 30, but as soon as I figured out that Batista was winning the Royal Rumble, I was pissed and I didn't want to go to WrestleMania 30. Granted, everything worked out in the end, and that's the lesson. Everything works out in the end, guys. But god damn it, I pretty much thought that this was the end of my professional wrestling watching career. Absolutely awful. And the only time I ever got mad watching wrestling.